Public hearings and lettings. Public hearing, surface and utility or utility improvements, DesRosier Drive, public improvement 373. Receive input, Public Works Director.
Good evening. Tonight we're here to discuss the public hearing for DesRosier Drive. You'll notice this is also included the City Project 373, so if the council decides to move forward with this portion, we would lump all of those together into one larger project. You'll recall at your last couple of meetings ago, we did have the feasibility report, and tonight we'd be presenting to the public the improvements that would be proposed along DesRosier Drive, as well as obtaining their input on the project. We do have a copy of the affidavit of publication as well as the mailing of public hearing notice on file. The project location is on DesRosier Drive. It's approximately 1,000 feet west of the intersection with Riverwood. You can see right there is where the project is located. We did receive one petition from the property owner that accounts for approximately 36.8% of the property along the project limits. Pavement is in good condition. It has a PASER rating of 7. And you'll notice on the next slide here, in regards to the pavement condition itself, that there's minimal cracking along that stretch. One thing to note is that it is 22 feet wide as opposed to our city standard of minimum 24 feet wide. We do not have any city utilities along DesRosier Drive. We did stub out sewer and water in 2003 when we went through with the Riverwood and Mississippi Boulevard extension. So here I mentioned this is a street view. You notice there are some transverse cracks on the road, but nothing major to speak of. So it does have a PASER rating of 7 because of the minimal cracking there. The proposed improvements would consist of an 8-inch sanitary sewer extended from Riverwood to the west, approximately 1,000 feet. The reason we stopped at that 1,000 foot mark is because the sewer is not deep enough to continue all the way around DesRosier. So if we were to serve that western edge of DesRosier Drive, we would come off of Mississippi Boulevard with that extension over to where this project would terminate. That would provide sanitary sewer to both sections of the road, but tonight, because we have the one petition, we only stopped at that 1,000 foot mark because that's where it would be able to be served. Sanitary sewer services will be stubbed up to the property line. We are looking at putting in an 8-inch water main for fire protection. Once we loop the water main through the entire stretch of DesRosier Drive, we could get away with a 6-inch. That's why they are assessed at the 6-inch amount, because of the oversizing needed for fire flow. We are proposing to put in an 8-inch water main. Again, just like sanitary sewer services, the water services will be stubbed out to the property line, so if property owners elect to hook up, they'd be able to hook up at that property line as opposed to digging into the street to connect up to it. The pavement section that we'll be looking at putting back consists of 5 inches of aggregate base with 2 inches of bituminous pavement. That's consistent with what we have on residential streets. And again, we'll be looking at a 24-inch or 24-foot rural section with the ditches to handle any storm events. This is the opinion of probable costs as presented in the feasibility report. You see the construction is at $213,720. With contingency engineering comes a grand total of $282,645. Now this number is likely to go down if we are to use in-house staff, as myself signing the plans, as well as some of our in-house staff designing it. So that could go down, but right now we have that in the event we have to send it out. But right now we're anticipating that number to be reduced. Looking at the project funding for the project, roughly 51% would be assessed. So that would be $142,887. The city would pick up the remaining portion of the project for a total cost of $282,645. Looking at the assessment rates for the project, for a 24-foot wide rural section, the front footage comes in at $20 a foot. A side foot is at $10 a foot. Sanitary sewer will be assessed at $30 per foot. The service lines are at $800 and $1,000 a piece for a 4- and 6-inch service line respectively. Water main is assessed at $30 a foot. And the water main service, we're looking at $1,200 for each for a 1-inch and $1,900 a piece for a 6-inch. One thing to note on the bottom down here, much like the rest of Riverwood that was constructed back in 2003, staff is recommending that we defer the assessments on those properties that hook up, or until they hook up to that line. There's a number of properties within the Riverwood subdivision up there that fall into this category, and we'd be looking to do the same thing in this area as well. Looking at the properties along that stretch, you know, most of them, if not all of them, were built between 2000 and 2014. They're relatively new. They went through the expense to put in their well and septic, and so we'd be recognizing that in this year. So in the event that they decide to hook up or the system fails, then they would be assessed at that point in time. Again, the city intends to sell general obligation bonds. Once this is combined with the larger project, if the council decides, we would sell bonds to pay for those improvements. If property owners are disabled or meet income guidelines that are 65 years or older, they may apply for deferment on that once they hook up. So the next steps to the process, tonight we have our public hearing. If the council approves the project, then we'll be looking at design sometime in April, advertising for bids in April as well, awarding a contract in May. Construction would go basically June through September, with special assessment hearing happening anytime between April and October of this year, and then construction will be completed in 2015. You've seen this schedule. It's very consistent with what I showed at the previous public hearing with our other three segments of the project: 1st Street Northwest, 5th Street Northwest, and 3rd Avenue, or 3rd Street. All along that same line, because this would be included in that if it's approved. So looking at the overall project costs, like I mentioned, we've got the 5th Street, 3rd Street, and 1st Street. We're looking at $1,197,000. So right now we're at that 23% mark. DesRosier is down here. We're at roughly that 50% mark for assessments, with the total project costs for 2015 just under $1.5 million. And again, you'll notice the star on here. The cost will likely be reduced because of the in-house staff doing that work. So we could reduce that slightly in through there. Now, I know there's going to be a number of questions about what's to be developed, and keep in mind tonight is the public hearing for the road, but I know there's probably going to be a number of comments or questions from the audience in regards to what's happening out there. This is a draft layout that I received here. I received the elevations this morning, but this here is what they're actually going to be proposing out there. Again, it's a draft. It hasn't gone to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has to review this at that point in time. But this is what they're looking at: four plexes with 8 of them, kind of in a horseshoe configuration, with another one connection up to Riverwood Drive here. Again, this all has to go through the Planning Commission, and at that point, once we receive all of the information for rezoning or PUD on this particular location, we will have a public hearing on the parcel, and everybody within 350 feet of this parcel will be notified for that public hearing. So I wanted to kind of put it out there. This is what's being proposed. The Planning Commission has not seen it, and once we get enough information to review all of it, then we're going to have a public hearing for just the development in itself. This is just a layout, what I received this morning in terms of what the front of those buildings would look like. So wanted to kind of give the public some information, because I know there hasn't been a whole lot out there in regards to this. And again, try to keep the comments surrounded around the DesRosier Drive project, as that's what the public hearing is for. But I'll open up to questions if anybody has any.
We'll open up for public comment. During the public comment, you're asked to come to the podium, state your name and address for the council records, and ask you to try to stay within a two-minute allowed time frame. A maximum of 2 appearances. Anyone wish to speak? Okay.
My name is Peggy Rexton, and I live at 14292 DesRosier Drive. I've currently been living there since 2002. And I know, just to read off of the notes that you guys are being handed out, currently DesRosier Drive is one of the better roads in the city of Little Falls. The surface condition is very good. The residents along DesRosier Drive we all have functioning wells with no need for a water line. And each resident has compliant septic service for wastewater treatment, so there is no need for a sewer line to be installed along DesRosier Drive. We believe the right approach is for the Roach company to prepare and submit any proposal early in the decision-making process, so our Little Falls City Council can make informed decisions regarding the development of the single-family zoned area of our Little Falls community. And we feel strongly about keeping this area a single-family zoned neighborhood. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Gordon Williams, and I also live on DesRosier Drive. And I want to thank you for holding this meeting so you can hear our concerns about the sewer and water and road pavement construction. And I also want to thank each one of you board members for either calling back to us or coming right out to our homes and talking to us. Maybe fault on that, so thank you so much. But I also, the comment would be, I also want to note that my name is on the petition, that I'm not in support of the construction of this project that will tear up a road at cost, financial cost of sewer, water, and repaving of the road. And this sewer, water, and road repavement project it just won't increase the value in my home at all.
Thanks, Gordon. Anyone else wish to speak?
We need Mr. Williams' address.
Or can we get your address, please?
It's 14394 DesRosier.
Thank you.
I can spell that for you too. I always have to spell that
Well,
for
I know how to spell it. You just said you lived on DesRosier, not the house number, so.
Stephen Mikowski, 14222 DesRosier Drive. Mayor Zilka, President Hensel, members of the council, thank you for the efforts that you put in to hear our concerns. I think the one thing I would like to say is it seems like this is the cart before the horse. There's a lot of difference between 14 single-family residents and traffic generated from that than there is from 8 fourplexes. There's a lot of difference when you do some type of a rezone of this area and set the precedent for the acreage that is to the west of this, that then will again create future development, more than likely of the same type, creating more traffic. The transition between the township and the city was meant to be, in your comp plan, R1C. And when the orderly annexation agreement was put into place, the town board and the city council eliminated all the bickering by agreeing to that, and your comp plan reflected that. Now to come and change that here as soon as the orderly annexation agreement expires, and try to zone this so that the amount of residential units that go in here far exceed what that transition was supposed to be is not right. And I think that to vote no on this and send it to the planning commission so that they can review this and come back with a good recommendation is the right way to proceed.
Thanks, Steve.
Mike Conley, 14278 DesRosier Drive.
I just wanted to make one comment. Looking to the future here, as far as DesRosier Drive, this is a very multi-use road. Those of you who have walked on it or live near know that we have walkers, people pushing carriages, walking dogs, children, continue constantly. I don't know what it is about this big loop that comes here and then down Mississippi Boulevard and around, but there's hundreds of people walking on there. So any future considerations of increasing traffic would be wise to consider. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Greg Valentine, 16784 Mississippi. I'm a part of DesRosier too. My property is on the corner there. One of the issues I guess that I have is that we somehow take a look at being consistent for the area that it's zoned for, but specifically to the fact that all of us have functioning sewers and functioning septics. I don't think it's necessary to put all that stuff in and, you know, assess us, the property owners, that amount. I don't want to stop progress. I do think that if somebody wants to develop that property on the other side, that's possible to do, but I don't think it should be zoned for apartments because of the traffic flow on that road. It's already going to be, like Mike said, a problem for all the people that walk it, and you know, it just doesn't fit the area. So I guess that's what I would say, and I just want to share my thoughts.
Thanks, Greg.
Chris Bell, 14196 DesRosier Drive. Most of what I have to say has all been said by everyone else here, but I wanted to address you guys too, to let you know that I am in the same thinking as they are. We just moved to this area 2.5 years ago, and one of the main reasons when we were looking at this, or when we went to buy our house, was because of the area that it was in and the neighborhood that it was. And yes, this hearing is for the water and the sewer, that's what it's for, but it's ultimately a means to the next step, and that's why it was initially brought upon, is because of what this development was going to do, or this development plan. You know, if that changes the whole neighborhood drastically. It changes what goes in there, it changes how much traffic. We have 3 small kids. If you put in 30 units or however many there, and that further lot gets developed with the same thing, that's a whole heck of a lot of traffic. And to be completely honest with you, if that would be there 3 years ago when I moved to this area, probably wouldn't have looked at buying that. And so now I feel like things are just being changed dramatically. So I echo the statements that they said before about the amount of foot traffic through that area. It is a walking path for not just, there's a lot of people from DesRosier Drive here, but for the entire Riverwood area. People from that whole area come through there, and to change that, I think, and to put that extra traffic through there would be detrimental to that. In addition, I agree with everyone else what they said in terms of working sewer and septic. We all have that. I've unofficially talked with some realtors, including who I bought the house through, to say if this were to happen at that end of the block, it would happen at our end of the block eventually. Would we recoup the cost of what we would be assessed? And with everything functioning and as new as our systems are, his response was no. So I know that's unofficial. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else wish to speak?
Robin Hensel, 807 First Street Southeast. My interest is twofold. This is from the Standard & Poor's Rating Services, Ratings Direct for Little Falls, Minnesota General Obligation, dated February 10th, 2015. And it states, we view the city's management conditions as adequate. In some areas, but not all key areas, we revised our FMA score to standard from good, due to the understanding that while Little Falls has a fund balance, police to provide and maintain an unreversed general fund and special revenue fund balances of approximately 35 to 50% of budgeted operating expenditures, the city is not currently meeting this policy. The city does not engage in long-term planning for operations. This is a big problem, folks. Money is a big problem in this city, and how money is managed in this city, and it's been going on for decades. Weak debt and contingent liabilities. In our view, Little Falls' debt and contingent liability profile is weak. We also expect that the city's debt profile will remain weak over the next 2-year outlook horizon, despite rapid amortization. And I have to say, I have mixed emotions about this. I'm hoping that the opposition isn't because this will be subsidized housing for the poor. I know that in all cities, there's some consideration given to putting blocks of groupings of homes like this in different areas to prevent poor areas of the city. And I would hope that all of us here tonight are not hearing that this is being objected to because there will be poor families that would be living here. That would be a travesty. But I understand the objections of the people that live there. It doesn't sound like they need or want this improvement, and I think the council should listen to their opinion.
Thanks, Robin. Anyone else wish to speak?
Terry Roach. I requested it, so I'm obviously in favor of it. 1716 West River Road. I understand everything they're saying. I realize they don't need the infrastructure. However, we do. The pavement's in great shape, but you can get new pipes under it without tearing it out. Unfortunate side effect to get the services to our property for development. And obviously that's what the public hearing is for tonight. The rest of the details on what goes there can be hashed out at a proper time, I thought. I'd just like to say once again, the Roach family is for it for good reason, and maybe I'll point out a couple of things that the benefits. If we did get to do this project, it will, for one, add to the tax base, which is a good thing, and more importantly, it will add market rate rentals to your community, which it is. We got a lot of income restricted, a lot of age restricted. You have exactly, according to your housing study, 14 3-bedroom apartments for rent. So there's plenty of folks that want to live and rent in that community that would walk on the streets just like the neighbors do. And if you're worried about traffic as well, it's not going to be a high density impact. It is low density by all standards, about 3.5 units per acre, which is probably, I guess, pretty good by standard to the rest of the city. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more.
Yep.
I don't know, I'm sure this has been looked into, but there is another road, not paved, not developed, that is just south of DesRosier Drive. It's on the back of this property. If this were to go through, perhaps the entrance and egress, or the egress to the property could be on that road. The sewer and water could go down that road. We don't need it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak? Third and final call. That close the public hearing at 8 o'clock. What is the wish of the council on surface and utility improvements for DesRosier Drive?
Mr. President, if you want, you can hold off on any action tonight. We do have a planning commission meeting. You know, a lot of members in the audience had indicated waiting until after we have the public hearing for that. So you may want to wish to hold off until that occurs. So you don't have to take any action tonight, is what I'm saying.
We still have discussion.
You can have discussion, yep.
Can I ask a question? Part of that talked about deferment until hooking up. Is that deferment on all the improvements, the road, the sewer, the water?
On all the assessments, yes, yep. And we did that similar to the rest of the Riverwood area. We deferred the assessments on those until they get done.
So if they'll hook up for 15 years?
Deferred.
Okay. Greg, I had one of the residents ask me if it was possible to hook up off of Riverwood to that property and to adequately service it. As far as going straight on property, I believe, is it stubbed in there at all, or I know there's a home there?
I don't believe it's stubbed in. I'd have to do some checking on it. That wasn't reviewed in terms of the feasibility report, so I can't say for certain on it. But I know it was stubbed out on DesRosier Drive. That's where we looked at it. It may be able to be stirred up there. I can't say. I would suspect the sewer water could go about the same distance, but I don't know for certain.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little more about the South Road? Possibility of...
That's not a public road. That's a private driveway to, I believe it's to the property to the west of Mr. Roach's. So we don't have anything.
No access to it? No.
That's not ours at all.
Now on that deferral, Greg, is there any interest or?
Okay. No, it's been our policy not to charge interest on those. So, you know, if it's $5 today, whenever they hook up again, it's $5. So whatever we expend is what we recoup.
So what is the city's policy as far as septic systems? So say one of the other ones do fail or they go to sell and their septic don't pass inspection, can they replace septic in city limits, or do they have to hook up to city sewer and water?
If city sewer and water is available within 500 feet, they have to hook up. Most of these are relatively new, you know, less than 15 years old, so they will likely pass an inspection. But we do have in place where if you get a new building permit, you have to make sure you have an up-to-date septic system inspection with the county. So if you're going to do an addition out of your house, a garage or whatever, we'll double check to make sure that there's a septic inspection on file at the county, you know, to verify that.
That includes any permit that they
Any permits, yes.
So putting the front door, new windows, or anything that needs a permit would have to be
True.
inspection.
So it's currently zoned at what?
It's currently zoned at R1C,
Okay.
which is single, 1 and 2 family residential country homes. And the country home designation basically says it has to have larger lots. If it was R1 in town, it'd be 11,000 square feet. In that area, because it's a country homes, it's 16,000 square foot is the minimum lot size. And you can have 1 and 2 family homes on that lot.
Rentals fall in that category.
Correct. We don't, they would have to get a permit for that from the city, but we don't regulate whether or not they can have a rental on a particular property.
Anyone else have any questions or concerns?
We're not voting on it tonight, so.
Well, I guess
It's up to the council.
council.
If we were voting on it, I'd have a few more things to bring up, but
My understanding was that we weren't going to vote on it tonight, so when people talked to me, I didn't see it as an action item. So, again, I believe Mr. Roach brings it the same vote.
Right.
And I would feel comfortable on bringing it to the table to vote on now.
so is the public hearing extended versus,
No, the public hearing would be closed. We close it, I don't remember what time it was closed at. But then the council can act on it at any point from here on into the future whenever they decide to act on it. So you can act on it tonight, you don't have to, you can act on it at your next meeting or at a future meeting, whenever that may be.
no, I agree, the tax base is important. I don't like the idea of destroying a good road that exists. I also think there's other projects in town that people are waiting on that feel they're being bypassed, and that's something that, you know, has to be dealt with as the revisions come in or whatever, but so there's a lot of different aspects to look at here. And being as it is an R1C, under that kind of puts Mr. Roach's plan where it is acceptable. But anyway, it's something we'll have to look at and probably at a planning commission meeting and discuss some of these things.
Yeah, we'd have to review it at a planning commission meeting, correct?
Any other questions? Should we put this on a time frame type deal, or bring?
That's exactly what we were just,
I don't think you can stay forever, can we?
No. It seems to me, just to let the public know, you should put it on a date certain of some sort, because otherwise I think the fear would be that all of a sudden it'll come up, they won't know anything about it, and it'll happen.
Yeah.
The best thing to do, it seems to me, is to figure out a date, if it's after the planning commission, and somehow figure out what that date might be, that it might come back. I don't know, when's it planned for a public hearing?
We have a planning commission meeting on Thursday. We don't have a public hearing on it at that point in time because we don't have all of the information provided, drainage counts and such. We do have it on the agenda just to kind of discuss what they're proposing, but we don't have, any of the specifics for staff to be able to give a recommendation one way or another on it. So likely we would have it at their following meeting, which would be in April. It would be a public hearing most likely.
So basically the third, bring it back on the third week in April, our meeting here. Correct. Planning commission should meet on the 13th again, and then the 20th. Be our next council meeting after that. So my guess is the public hearing will be on the 13th.
I would suspect if we get all the information, yes.
So we need action to send it to the planning commission? And
No,
back, or?
because the planning commission will deal strictly with the land. The council will deal with the utility portion of it. So
That's what I don't get why we're sending this portion of it to the planning commission anyhow.
we're not, or I guess, you don't have to. You can, but you don't have to.
Right. The development's what's going to the planning commission, and the rezoning, if he's requesting fourplexes, because joint homes is what you put out there currently.
True.
Aren't we just waiting until we hear from the planning commission?
Yes.
Their thoughts?
That would be my recommendation, yes. Is to wait until you hear from the planning commission to see what you want to do as a council with the utility extension.
So we'll just have an update on the 20th?
That's what I was going to suggest, that the next time we talk about this at a council level would be April 20th.
Okay. Thank you all for attending. Move on to all letting support.